Namaste, it's Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. So much has been going on from a personal level, which always relates to a cosmic level, and that's what I want to talk about in this episode. I just started sharing a little bit on my Instagram story about what's going on from a dimensional standpoint. I'll explain what that means. And I asked you guys if you're interested, if you want to learn more, if it's a little kind of out there for you. And a lot of you guys are commenting saying, I want to learn more about what's going on in the cosmos. So I'm going to hop into it. If you don't like this kind of stuff, you feel like it's out there, you don't believe it, you don't need to listen whenever you feel called. If you feel called to this information, keep listening. If it's not for you, you don't have to. Again, information comes to people when they are ready for it. And I think that there's no point in listening to something and being like, that's bullshit, and just being angry about it the whole time. Then just turn this off. So again, if you're ready for the transmission, I'm here to share with you what I have been receiving. So what is a transmission? A transmission is a download. It's essentially when you get a flutter of information that comes from a source that you know is greater than you. So for example, let's say you're on a walk and suddenly you have this like amazing perspective on life that you've never had before. Or let's say you're writing and suddenly just like knowledge and information is flowing through you. You know, my book was pure channeling, pure transmissions. I would sit down on my laptop and sometimes I wasn't even looking at the screen and the information was channeling through because of how many past lives I've had doing this work and how I was put on this planet to be the voice to share Ayurveda in a modern way. So we all have this. It's not just me. It's not just your friend. We all are constantly receiving information. The way that the information becomes more available for us in a more potent form where we can actually take it and do something of it is by opening up ourselves as vessels for this information and aligning ourselves with truth. So let's go back a little bit about what this means, what's the history of it. So metaphysics is a subject that has existed obviously for thousands of years. The Vedas were among the first recorded information in the Vedic texts about these different dimensions and how we are living a microcosm of the macrocosm. Microcosm is like a small example of what's going on in the sky. So even in my book, The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, I keep on repeating, we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. We are a reflection of nature. So what's going on with us from an interpersonal level is always a reflection of what's going on from a way greater cosmic level. So we are all these cosmic beings. Literally, our bodies are created of stardust. That's what we are all made out of. So we are always being affected by what's going on in the skies and what's going on with the moon and also what's going on from a planetary perspective. So for the past few thousand years, we've lived in this patriarchal era. The patriarchal era has been one that has been ruled by the masculine, but unfortunately the masculine has been deeply, deeply wounded. So what does that mean? Masculine, so we all are part feminine, part masculine. It's the yin and the yang, and the masculine is in charge of more structure, more, action. From a society perspective, it's like climbing a corporate ladder. That's a very masculine thing. Competition, it's very pitta in nature. So we've been ruled by this patriarchal era, and unfortunately, we went astray. We weren't able to ground that energy into the earth, because the earth is inherently more feminine in nature and the skies are more masculine. So we weren't able to ground that energy into the earth, and we got caught up in the who's better than who, into the wars, into the famines, into the genocides, into sexual assault and rape and all of these horrible crimes of humanity that have actually been the majority of history for the past few thousand years. We've experienced slavery, we've experienced colonialism, we've experienced mass genocides on multiple occasions. Because this patriarchal era had kind of gone astray, and we totally lost connection with the feminine. We lost connection to earth. We lost connection to our bodies. We lost connection to the magic, the sisterhood that really ruled the planet before, when we were in a more balanced, more feminine era. For example, when the Vedas were written and things like that, there was a lot more flow. And from a Vedic perspective, they call this kind of masculine, they don't have the exact dates, but it's called Kali Yuga. So it's a time of chaos, really. Kali is the goddess of chaos. She can create and be really amazing and wonderful. And just like in the masculine is when you're creating and when you're making things, when you're being super productive, that's your masculine that's going on. Masculine does not mean it's a bad thing. But when it gets too dense, when it loses touch with that feminine, loses that balance, then that turns into chaos, corruption, crime, genocide, poverty, etc. So that's unfortunately what we've been experiencing for the past, over 1,000 years now. So 2012, why was 2012 such a big deal? Well, it's the last date of the Mayan calendar. In a lot of spiritual texts, they have said 2012 is the year that we're going to shift from this patriarchal era to a feminine era. And no one knew what that's going to look like. So 2012, I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people about this, and it was their year of awakening. And I want you to think back on what was going on in your life in 2012. Was that your year of awakening? For a lot of people, that was their year that they started practicing yoga. They picked up their first spiritual text. Maybe they ended a relationship that wasn't serving them. Maybe they moved. For me, 2012 was the year that I was like my last year of college, and I totally stopped drinking. I stopped going out. I stopped being friends with everyone I was friends with. And I went deep, deep, deep into my yoga spiritual world and became really isolated because I couldn't find anyone that connected with me where I was. And it was really, really tough because I felt totally misunderstood. And, I knew that the path I was on was not the right path. It was this huge turning point in my life. And I obviously did not know about the whole I heard about 2012, like from a Mayan calendar perspective. I didn't realize that we were switching to a feminine perspective. 2012 is also the year that social media really, really, really took off. Instagram. That's when Instagram started. That's when all of, really social media existed before, but 2012 was the year that it actually became an integral part of our lives. And social media, in a way, is very, very feminine. I talk about this even in the first episode, but it's a spread of information. So the feminine is flow, it's freedom, it's sharing, it's collaboration. It's saying, hey, no one's better than each other. You're not better than me. It's, the masculine looks at other people and is suspicious and is like, what are you doing that for? You must be up to no good. Or it's fear-based of, oh, I'll never make it. I'm not good enough. They're better than me. Or it's ego-based and it's like, oh, I'm the best and no one else can be like me. It's very black and white. Whereas the feminine is like, hey, it's all a gray spectrum. It's all a rainbow spectrum, not even gray. But there are no rules. It's bending, it's flowing, it's water, it's air. The masculine is very fire. It's like burning you, creating, but burning. So we switched to this feminine era, and with social media, ideas began to spread. We experienced the revolutions in the Middle East, the Green Movement, which created a catalyst of revolutions around the Middle East. We experienced a lot of governments being overthrown, a lot of change going on politically, which I'll talk about what's going on in our country in a bit. But 2012 was really that year of the shift, and shifts are never easy, never, ever easy, because we actually learn through pain. It's impossible to really, really learn a lesson without experiencing some element of pain and discomfort, right? Your body's not going to get stronger when you're exercising by not getting to that level of discomfort. You don't need to kill yourself. You don't need to wait until your muscles burn out and you fall on the floor, but you need to, even in a yoga practice, get to that point of discomfort so you can open up more, you can get stronger. And that's what strength is, it's creating what didn't exist before and building something upon that. So we had to gain that strength. So 2012 was a year of a lot of chaos for people, but that chaos was needed to open up to this higher portal of consciousness. So besides this masculine and this feminine shift that's happening, things are happening from a dimensional perspective. So what does that mean? So as we know, dimensions are levels, right? You have different dimensions of a building, you have different dimensions of a situation, right? There are different perspectives. Now, we are 5-dimensional beings. We have our 5 senses. We can see, we can smell, we can taste, we can hear, we can feel. So we have these 5 senses, but humans are not 5-sensory beings. We were in the past very, very focused on, if you can see it, then you believe it. But now we're shifting to become multidimensional beings. What is a multidimensional being? A multidimensional being is someone who can operate past the 5 senses, and they essentially have a 6th sense, like the movie, but that 6th sense is not seeing ghosts. It's being intuitive. I mean, that might be seeing ghosts at some points in your life, but it's being intuitive. It's opening up that third eye, that crown chakra. Third eye chakra, if you haven't heard the chakra episode or read in my book, third eye chakra is the space between your eyebrows. It's in charge of intuition. Intuition is when you have a gut feeling about something, when you're able to perceive without really knowing, right? It's like when you walk into a room and you feel like the energy is off, and then you find out that there was just a fight in that room and you picked up on that energy. That's intuition. When you meet someone and they seem really awesome and really cool, but something about them is a little off. You don't really know what it is. That's your intuition. Intuition is, I don't know, something is telling me I need to move. I don't know what it is, but something's telling me I need to move. That's intuition. And without intuition, we'll fail as human beings. Intuition is what keeps us from getting into that car accident, from getting into that catastrophe. If you haven't listened to the episode, The Connection Between Dharma, Karma, and Kriya, listen to that. But I talk about how we're on this path. We're on this road. The end of the road is our dharma, our life purpose. And as we're driving down this road and we, go a little bit astray, maybe the end of our road, our dharma was to be a spiritual teacher. And we're saying, hey, I can make a lot of money doing real estate. So you shift in that direction, and then suddenly, bad things start happening to you. Different horrible situations, you ignore it. And eventually that little tap on the shoulder turns into a push, turns into a punch, turns into a car accident. So we are able to prevent that escalation of negative events when we are able to look straight into our dharma and follow that path. So karma is dharma in action. Karma are the roadblocks keeping us on our path. Now, when you're cruising down the highway, there's no one on the highway, you're just going, cruise control, that's Kriya. And Kriya is effortless flow. It's when you are just moving, things are just, doors are opening in your direction. You're writing that book and it's just clear. There's no roadblocks, For example, I talk about the whole Deepak Chopra experience and how that happened to me in episode 14 of how I met him. He called me. We met up. He wrote the foreword of my book. It happened so fast. And I asked him, does this stuff always happen? He said, it's meant to always be like this. That's living in Kriya, right? So we are moving from these 5-dimensional beings of, I don't know, I'll only believe it when I see it, right? That's what you tell when your parents say when you tell them about spirituality, at least my dad. You need to prove it to me with statistics and facts, otherwise I don't believe it. They're still tied to the 5 senses. When you're a multidimensional being, you're like, hey, there's a lot going on this earth that I can't see, I can't measure, but I know that exists, Turn on a radio. Can you see the radio waves going into the radio? No. UV light. We know UV light exists. Can we see it with our eyes? No. Infrared. Can we see that? No. There are more colors that we cannot see. Way more colors on the spectrum that we cannot see than those that we can. So how can we say that those colors don't exist just because our eyes cannot see them? That's ignorance, right? That's ignorance. So just because we can't see something with our physical eyes, just because we haven't already created scientific methods of formulation to measure them, doesn't mean they don't exist. What is science? Science is a speculation that they then created evidence for to turn it into truth. But it started as a speculation. Nothing that we have in science, from gravity to cellular biology to any pharmaceutical medication. None of that would have existed if it didn't begin with a speculation. So imagination is a necessary part of science. If we just said, I'll only believe what I see, we would have been cave people still today. And even cave people still had some elements of magic to them. Magic is as old as time, right? We've always been tapped into this greater, higher source of consciousness. But right now, things are speeding up and we're feeling it. They're speeding up from a planetary perspective. We've shifted 2012, feminine era. The spread of information, technology is making I'm alone in my room right now, and 20,000 of you are going to listen to this. It's crazy. How could this have existed in time before? It could have never happened. We chose to evolve. We chose to reincarnate in this time so we can be part of this shift. This is not only the information era, but this is an era of re-enlightenment and redefining what it means to be a higher consciousness being. I'm so passionate about this. You can hear it in my voice, but we're waking the fuck up right now. And this is a time of like, are you with it or are you not? You know, it's so sad because I see people who are on this path of yoga, on this path of Ayurveda, on this path of spirituality. They say they're on this path, but their actions don't align with that. You know, I've received so many people who are, you know, they're stuck in the old paradigm. They have great intentions that they want to be Ayurvedic practitioners and stuff, but they're stuck in the old paradigm that they only do what they've been told. And if a book says you have to eat ghee and you have to eat rice and you have to do these things, they will do it, but they're not really studying Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is a living science. The reason Ayurveda has lasted 5,000 plus years is because it's adapted with the times. I'll talk about this, and I'm going to talk about this a lot in my next book, but why is Ayurveda so focused on rice and on grains and on legumes and on dairy products? Because in the agricultural revolution, that's what became the staple of the diet. Before that, we didn't have grains. We didn't have cattle. We didn't have these things. We actually were all hunter-gatherers, just picking leaves off the trees and berries and nuts and seeds and eating them. That's what we survived off of. So during the agricultural revolution, we started working in factories. Factory farms began, and it became much cheaper and much easier to feed the growing population. We had cities for the first time. We never had cities before that. Way easier to feed them grains than it is for everyone to eat tons of leafy greens, which is what people were eating before, even in India. So it switched. Ayurveda said, okay, this is what works, because Ayurveda is constantly adapting with the times. And right now, Ayurveda is waking up again, and it's saying living foods, raw foods can totally be part of it. Because right now, we aren't working in factories. We're not sitting behind our computers we're sitting behind our computers all day. We're not working in factories. So we don't need that same level of physical energy that grains, that lots of rice and heavy foods can provide us with. Most of us, we need to lose weight. Most of us need to drop that heaviness. So for us, we're shifting back towards eating more leafy greens, more of a plant-based diet again, because we are no longer working in farms and in factories. So the whole living food Ayurveda movement is taking off. Gabrielle Cousins, there are a lot of great Ayurvedic practitioners who are raw vegans. You know, you don't have to be, I'm not saying be a raw vegan. I'm not saying be anything. I'm saying just open up your pineal gland and be conscious and do what works for your body, and don't do something because a book told you to, whether it's my book or anyone else's book, because that's old paradigm thinking. Okay, I want to wake you guys up so you can be your own healers. You know, like that's actually what a guru is. A guru is one that passes information so you can light yourself up, right? A guru is not someone that you listen to and you obey to and whatever they say goes. That's brainwashing. And I see that happen a lot. I see people that they say, oh, this is my guru, this is my whatever, I'll do whatever they say. No, don't do whatever anyone says. Do what works with you. Fuck boundaries. Fuck any of that. Do what works with you. Okay? And this is all part of the new paradigm. Breaking the bounds and the bonds and the societal structure and all of these things that are literally keeping us in boxes. Like we are like, I think now more than ever, we're all waking up to, wait, I thought my life was supposed to look like high school, college, first job, marriage, kids, house, midlife crisis, retirement, death. No, like that does not have to be the order of your life. You can have it be filled with whatever you want. Okay. But in this patriarchal era where they were trying to kind of dictate us, and there was a few people on top that were regulating the masses, that's what worked, because if everyone's going off and doing their own thing and living their dharma, they wouldn't have full control. And that's why, now there's so much great information about all of the scandals that have been going on from a political perspective. And I won't get into all of that, but just know that a lot of the structure that we've been living at has been for someone else's benefit. And now we're breaking the bonds from that. So let's talk about it from a more cosmic perspective. So I love the book, Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav. If you want to learn more about our shift from 5-dimensional to multidimensional meanings, read that book, Seat of the Soul. It's actually the book that Oprah Winfrey credits, and she wrote the foreword of the book now after reading it. That was the book that created her spiritual enlightenment. Oprah was really great with the psychology and the day-to-day stuff. And she was going through a spiritual awakening. She read that book. It opened up her consciousness. And now Oprah is super, super divinely orchestrated and is very intuitive and very conscious, very spiritual person. And it was all because not only because that book, but that book awakened her to, when you read that book, you'll see it's a lot of stuff that right? It's stuff that you feel, but it's been written down. So I really, really love that book. And I'll share more books as I go along, but that's a really good book. It's also an audiobook on like Audible, so you can listen to it there. But from a cosmic perspective, so if you haven't heard of Abraham Hicks, also, I recommend listening to Abraham Hicks. Abraham Hicks is sounds weird. It's this like channeled master, right? Spiritual master, soul, whatever you want to call it, that spreads really amazing messages. And if you just hop on YouTube, you look up Abraham Hicks, there are hundreds of videos of this woman, Esther Hicks, who channels this ascended master. And she shares a lot of universal wisdom that are things that, they feel really right, but it's amazing to hear it from a more cosmic perspective. So let's talk a little bit about like what's going on these days. So that feminine shift happened, but as we know with any shift, it comes with a lot of chaos. And right now we are kind of experiencing, it's like, when like a bomb drops, it's like that debris starts flying up for a while. It takes a long time for the dust to settle. And the dust is like, I don't even think it's really gone as high up as it's going to go. So Trump got elected. That happened. I was so sad about it. I think most of us were, probably all of us. But what I'm realizing is it needed to happen. It needed to happen because it is what has woken us up to our own shit. The things that have existed that no one has been talking about, that have been swept under the rug. And we say, oh, it's America. We're the best country on earth. Nothing bad happens here. Look at us. Afghanistan's a mess. Iraq is a mess. All those countries are messes and we're the best. No. Trump being elected woke us up to that we have a lot of stuff we have to really, really, really look at in the eye here. We have many racist people, and I'm not talking about one-off comments. These people are purely racist. Not that they were born that way, because they've been brainwashed. Why have they been brainwashed? Because they feel marginalized. They feel purposeless. They feel like I don't have a job, and the easiest thing to do is to blame it on Mexican people. There's crime here. It's the easiest thing is to blame it on Black people. I'm afraid for my life. The easiest thing is to blame it on Muslim people, because it's really hard to look in the mirror and look at what am I doing to create this issue. It's way easier to point at a group of others and say it's them. And that's what's been happening. So we have had this very, very, it's not even a group. It's like potentially a majority. Potentially, we don't know the numbers, but a lot of people in the US who feel purposeless, who feel voiceless, who are sad. And they are uneducated and they don't have high incomes and the costs are going up and they don't have the resources to pay for things and they're upset about that. So this figurehead has risen up and is like the pinnacle of scapegoating and the pinnacle of really being an imbalanced pitta of being like, I have the answers. I know what's right. If you follow me, I'll make sure those Mexicans and those blacks and those Muslims and those gay people and all those people go down because I know the answer. And unfortunately, because they're not educated, because they've never had the opportunity really to wake up, it's not their fault. So we can't blame them. We can't hate them because that's us being them. We have to only send them love, only send them compassion and awaken them as much as we can. So this guy, Trump, rose up from this blaming and shaming game, and it needed to happen because now we know that sexual assault is happening in every single kind of industry, from Hollywood to fast food and everything in between. Sexual assault is the norm. I don't think there's a single woman out there who can't say, me too. How freaking sad is that all of us who are women have experienced sexual assault? That's something that needs to be talked about. I don't think we would have talked about it as much if we still had this perfect presidency, right? We needed someone to be like, hey, this is what's going on. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is one of the perpetrators. There are many cases out against him of him sexually assaulting young girls. Okay. So this is why we need to talk about it. People in this country are angry. They are angry because they're not being heard. They're not being represented. We're actually just experiencing what people in other countries have been experiencing all along. So it's opened our perspective to, oh, wow, no wonder there's a revolution going on in Iran right now. No wonder in Egypt things are unstable. I get it. People aren't okay with being led by a horrible government. So they are demonstrating and they're waking up. The Women's March that just happened, biggest ever yet, and it's continuing to grow. So we needed Donald Trump to wake up to the fact that no one's going to save us. No government's going to fix everything. We have to step up and we have to rise up. The world needed this to heal. Because if we had continued on that old path, the world would have been destroyed. Things would have gotten so bad, environmentally, socially, politically, that who knows what would have happened to humankind and Earth. I mean, Earth will always continue. Earth will say, hey guys, humans, you guys failed. Ice Age, bye-bye. Create a new human race. Not even a human race. Who knows what will be by that time in a few thousand years. But Earth will continue. It's us. It's us that we need to get our shit together because we are temporary residents here on this planet and we are not treating our mother with respect. So this needed to happen. Now let's talk about what's this vortex. So vortex, Abraham Hicks talks about this a lot, but a vortex is essentially a conscious pool of energy. Okay, it's this. Like when I think of it, I think of like an active volcano, and it's like the bed of it where the lava is emerging from. It's where all of this juice and stuff is happening. So we are all connected to this vortex, and this vortex spreads universal consciousness. It spreads these ebbs and flows of life that we all go through. So we think that we are all these like super unique individuals and like what's happening to me could never happen to you and we're all on our own. And it's like, actually, we're all going through the same things at the same time, but we've created this illusion of separation that we think that, oh, I'm all alone, or American people are different than these kinds of people, or my gender is different than that gender. And we've created all these separations that are actually all the creation of the ego. The ego is the personality self, the identity self. So the identity self can only continue to exist if we say, oh, I am a Iranian, Muslim, female, American who I could go on naming all these things that I was born as, but that's all a creation of my ego. Whereas my higher self, my soul, Atman in Vedic words, Atman is the universal self that is unbounded and actually exists the same. Atman exists in all of us. It's tapping into this higher frequency. So, when you practice yoga or you meditate and you experience this like feeling of like being one with the universe, I don't know if you've ever felt that before, but I hope you do. And it's just feeling like, wow, like there's actually really no difference between me and the person next to me and the person on the other side of the world with me. Like we all have the same hopes, the same fears, the same dramas, the same desires. We are so similar. And the tiny, minute details of she has slanted eyes and I have curly hair and blah, 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 blah are all creations of the ego. So when we drop that ego and it becomes, fog up into the sky and we can drop down into like what is truth, not an illustration, what is truth, then we see that we are all one. We're all experiencing the same things at the same time. So in the cosmos, there are ebbs and flows happening all the time. There are times of greater awakening. There's times that the portals are opened, that we're all getting information and downloading and moving really fast. And there's times where things slow down and it's time to go inwards and it's time to really receive and come back into your body. So from a universal perspective, we're all going through these same changes. And it's interesting and it's really, really brought it to light to me when on my Instagram story, if you guys haven't seen my Instagram, it's I am Sahara Rose at I am Sahara Rose. And on my Instagram story, I'm constantly just sharing downloads of what's going on with me. And every time I share them, I get so many messages from people like, thank you so much for sharing that. That's exactly what I needed to hear. That's exactly what I'm going through. Even when I record these podcasts, people listen to different podcasts at different times, months apart. And I get messages like, wow, I happened to find your podcast for the first time. I listened to episode 33 and it was the exact message that I needed at the exact time. So we are constantly receiving the exact messages that our soul needs. And the reason why on a certain day I'm talking about like, oh, all this shit's happening to me and you need to step up to the shit. Like today on my Instagram story, I was talking about how, that when bad things happen to us, it's really just us not seeing the greater result of it. And we get stuck in that story. But really life is what you make of the lemons, It's not like life sometimes throws you lemons. Life is a lemon, right? It's sour. And we are constantly needing to create that into something greater. And if you're looking for the perfect moment where there's no more shit happening, that's never going to happen. It might exist for a few days, but something's going to happen. No one can ride a high horse forever. So I was sharing this and again, all these messages from people like, this is exactly what's going on with me today. It's like a lot of stuff that I didn't want to look at is coming to light. And I've been really needing to see this. And what's happening is it's an upgrade. So we are constantly receiving DNA upgrades. And what that means is us transitioning from these 5-dimensional to multidimensional beings. So the upgrades come in oftentimes painful and discomfortable moments. For example, what's been going on with me for the past 2 weeks is I've had bed bugs all over my apartment. And I first didn't notice it. I noticed I had some bites on me. I thought maybe it was mosquitoes. Kept sleeping in that bed. And then I noticed they were always in rows. Then I literally would see trails of bites like from my shoulder, like up my neck in like a perfect row. And I was like, okay, this is a bug like walking on me. So I started looking online. What are these bugs? And realizing that they're bed bugs. And long story short, the past 2 weeks have been a horrible, I'm not going to say it's been a very difficult process because I had to, get rid of my bed. And it turns out that there was an infestation a few doors down the hall from me. And because it was an evicted unit and the bed bugs have spread from their unit to the one next to me. So they're actually all over my floor. So no matter what I do, no matter how much I exterminate them, they will still come back because it's a greater problem than just my apartment, right? What a metaphor for life. the shit that's coming into my perfect space where everything's great and I sage it all the time, but there's still bed bugs coming in. What the hell? I can't control what's going on in the universe. So I was really, really, really scared. My root chakra is still aggravated because root chakra is your grounding. It's your connection to your home. It's survival. So again, I talked about this on a previous podcast episode, all about the chakras. So when our root chakras are thrown out of balance, it basically means we feel like we don't have a home, we don't have safety. So right now, if you look at my apartment, everything's in trash bags. I've been living out of a trash bag because I can't put anything out. I'm looking for new apartments. I have to move all my stuff this week and find a new apartment and move. It's the same week that my book is due. All this shit coming to life, and it's a lot to deal with. And my boyfriend's in Australia, so I'm doing this all on my own, and it's just a lot. So at first I was like, how can this be happening to me again? I'm so clean. I'm so this, I'm so that. How can this be happening to me? Then I realized, wow, what a story. Why me? Why me? Why me? Let's look at this from a deeper perspective. What do bed bugs even represent? It's something that's going to the root. It's hidden. It's in the shadows. It's in the crevices and the dark parts of your soul that you don't want to look at. So these bed bugs are shadows coming to light to be healed and transmuted into vital energy. So for me, going through this whole bed bug process, it's not you did something wrong. This is an upgrade. This is a DNA upgrade of we need you to go through this icky thing so you can get rid of what you don't need, be conscious of everything in your space, which I wasn't. Be much more minimalistic, only keep what you need. I've learned I only need enough things that fit in a trash bag. Actually, I don't even know why the rest of the stuff is in my apartment, right? How many of us can relate? Going through all those things that you're holding on to, not just physically, but emotionally, all those emotions you're holding on to that no longer serve you, getting to the root of them, cleaning them out, and moving on. And I love my apartment. I talk about it all the time on the podcast. I'm looking at the ocean right now, and it's been so amazing. And the truth is, I'm thinking I might have to move. I'm thinking that this might be the universe telling me that energetically you've outgrown the space. Because I live in a very small 1-bedroom. It's by the ocean, but it's a very small 1-bedroom. And I think the universe is telling me that now it's time for you to move somewhere that is a little bigger, but also more grounded. I'm on the 16th floor. It's very, very high. I get a lot of downloads, but I also need to connect it back to earth. And I've been here for 2 years now. So I feel like it's telling me to move somewhere more grounded, to not get attached to anything. I was like, Santa Monica for life. I'm never leaving here. Ocean, ocean, ocean. I love the ocean. She's my mother. But don't be attached to anything because the ocean will continue to be your mother even when you don't see it. You don't need to see something to believe it. I have chills even just saying that. Again, I'm just staring at the ocean, just saying what's coming to mind. But it's awakened me to don't be attached to your surroundings. Don't be attached to your belongings. Don't be attached to your personality. Don't be attached to anything because all is temporary. And at any moment, bugs can crawl all up inside there. And you have 2 choices to either sit with those bugs and get bit and bit and bit or to move on. So energetically, I think it's time for me to move to a home that is more on the ground, more connected to earth, has more garden, more outdoor space. And I'll see. I'll keep you guys posted if I move this week. But it's always being connected. So the universe is always sending us signals, and it's up to us to listen to them. One could easily say, oh, I have bed bugs. This sucks. They're going to exterminate it, and then they're going to be gone, and I'll move on with my life. But looking at what's the deeper spiritual meaning in this. And these things are always happening to us. So today, I'm just noticing, maybe I'll just release this in the next few days so it's fresh. But I'm just noticing today, right now it's the end of January, new eclipse, but I'm seeing a lot of breakups happening. I'm seeing a lot of issues coming to light, a lot of tension in relationships in general that I'm just seeing with people, with friends. And this is the illusion coming to light. This is, for example, let's say you're going through a breakup right now. Where did I lose myself in the relationship? Like maybe I was creating this identity of who I was with this person, but without them, I literally have no idea who I am. So I think a lot of us lose at least a little part of ourselves in relationships, but it's so important to continue holding your own and know that even if you're experiencing this amazing love, if that love is over, you can move on. Because humans, we're always ebbing and flowing, and it's not survival of the fittest. Darwin said it's survival of who can adapt. So life is always, 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 the moment we get comfortable, it throws us something to make us uncomfortable again so it can see how we adapt to that thing. And that is how you upgrade. When you upgrade, you become more intuitive, you become more multidimensional, you become more in touch with that vortex, receiving the messages, things flow, you're on your Kriya more, you're in touch with your highest self, doors open to you, life contains more flow. Again, it's never going to be always easy, but you can let go of that driver's wheel when a shitty situation happens, and instead of reacting, oh, why me? You say, okay, what needs to come to light? What do I need to work on next? Because we're still humans. We're never going to fix everything. You can spend the rest of your life healing, healing, healing. You're never going to fix everything. And we didn't come here to be perfect. We didn't come here to be angels. We came here to experience the being of humanness, right? To be human is to be flawed. And the only way that we can keep on improving ourselves, create this heaven on earth, is to continue to look at the shit. Okay, so I know that was kind of a lot, and you're like, wait, I don't even know where to start. So I want you to just take a few moments right now and think about what is something going on in your life that's bringing you discomfort. What is bringing you discomfort in your life? Okay. When did the situation begin? How long has it been in your consciousness? How have you reacted to this thing? Now let's go a layer deeper. What is this thing trying to teach you? What could be the lesson behind it? And if you can't think, imagine if a friend came to you with this issue. What would you tell them is the lesson behind this? What is it in your life that you weren't looking at, that this situation has caused you to look at? What steps do you think you need to take to grow from this situation? Are there any messages that this situation is trying to send to you? So again, sometimes it takes rethinking and re-asking these questions to ourselves several times, especially if you're in a more quiet, reflective space. If you're driving, it could be a little more difficult to get to the root of it. But the point is, we're all going through this. And I'm thinking I'm just going to put up this episode right now so you guys can hear it today on January 27th. Just going to put it up right after I record. Because that's what's happening right now. It's like we don't have time to wait. Like even with podcasts, how sick are you of like how curated they are? Like it's like sometimes I feel like in this world, I mean, you guys heard my last podcast episode. That was very, very just real, but that's what we need. We just need more realness. We need more straight to heart. It's great. I love curated podcasts. I love the time and effort they put into them. I have tons of interviews and I really hope to do that more too. But sometimes life is messy, life is real, life is unfiltered, and we need to see more of that because if we keep thinking everyone else around us is perfect, we lose our own humanness. So know that everyone else is going through the same aches and pains. It's all part of growing and evolving. And if you're listening to this podcast, you are among the first people who are waking up. We're still the very, 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 very minority. We're less than 0.1% of the population, people who are spiritually awake or consider themselves conscious. It's still a tiny, tiny minority of people. So if you're listening to this, if you're especially this deep in, you're woke. And if you feel isolated, if you feel like things might be a little rocky right now, if you feel like you might be losing your groundedness, that root chakra might feel like, oh, I don't really know where's home. I don't really know what direction to move to. I don't really know what feels right. I don't really feel anchored in. Just know that this is part of the process. These are the upgrades that you're receiving in your awakening, and to continue to ground down to earth. Go to earth, walk to earth, connect to nature. Let her be your guru. Because when you connect to nature, you're actually recalibrating the ions. You know, the earth contains negative ions. It recalibrates our electromagnetic charge and it makes us more balanced. When we're always, up in our cars and wearing rubber soles and we're never touching earth, we lose that electromagnetic charge that humans have always had that kept us healthy. And that's essentially what creates disease and imbalance later on, especially with anxiety and just being too in your head. Super vata. So we need to come back down to earth. And I say this, I mean, it's like I almost literally want to cry when I say this because I'm here up in this like super high up apartment where I feel so flying. And I'm like, yeah, this is a lesson to me. I need to be down to mother, down to earth, connected to the roots, because this is where we all need to go. The most spiritual practice we can do right now is connect down to earth. Go down to the foundation and start there and strip away all that's not serving you. We get so caught up into, I need to do this spiritual practice and I needed to go do this, and there's always more things we can do. But let's go back down to basics. How are you living your life? How are you interacting with other people? Are you still led and ruled by jealousy and lower vibration emotions? Are you still using guilt tactics to get your way? Are you still angry and judgmental and hateful? And if that's the case, I mean, we all have that side of ourselves. We can't deny that. But we need to look at that. We need to acknowledge that. We need to say, yeah, this part of me still exists and I'm going to work on that. I don't need to go to a new type of yoga, meditation, whatever. That's all great. But I need to learn how to be a better person and bring that yoga into my everyday life. That's the most evolved thing anyone can do. So from a cosmic perspective, again, the universal message right now is to come back to Earth, get in touch with the basics. Know that we're all going through the same process. When you're connected to the vortex, you're connected to that universal source, things flow. You know, Abraham Hicks always says you can feel it because you feel tapped in and turned on. When you feel tapped in, turned on, and he says something else too, but that means you are, that's when we feel good. You don't feel good just like vegging out in front of the TV. You don't really feel good just like peering through Instagram stories for hours. That doesn't really feel good. It's when you're tapped in and turned on. When you're awakened, when you're passionate, when you feel alive, when you feel your blood moving and your body shaking, and all of that is what brings us back to this human experience, which is the most evolved conscious thing that we can do. Hello, it's why we were brought here. We weren't here to leave the body. We were here to transform that body and create it into a vessel higher than source energy could have ever possibly imagined. We were here to become conduits of life and light. So, I want you to go back to whatever that issue is that you're dealing with, that point of discomfort, find the lesson of it, and take the steps necessary to transmute it. No, what is this trying to show me? My bed bugs are trying to show me, hey, be more aware of your surroundings, be more clean, be more minimalistic. Don't hold on to all these things that you don't need. And it's also maybe telling me to move. Maybe your breakup is telling you, hey, this relationship is no longer serving you. It's no longer a vibrational fit. It's time for you to move on. It's time for you to figure out who you are independently. Maybe this illness is telling you, hey, you haven't been taking care of yourself. You've been taking care of everyone else, but your body has been on a back burner, and now we're going to manifest illness so you can pay attention. There's a message in everything. It's always speaking to us. Never think you're alone. Never think you're out of touch. No one's out of touch. We're always being connected and communicated with. But sometimes we don't realize that the most painful, irritable things that we're experiencing are those divine messages. So, if you have any questions, you want to talk about this, hop on the Mind Body Balancers, the Highest Self Podcast Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. You can try to join and I will accept you. And leave a review for this podcast because this message is definitely something that most wellness, spiritual, whatever podcasts, they don't really talk about it because it sounds really like intangible. But again, science was once intangible. All that exists, the fact that I even live in a high-rise was 100 years ago considered intangible. So we can't limit ourselves to the 5 dimensions. We are multidimensional beings. So please leave a review of the podcast and I will email you back my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type, which infuses Ayurveda with modern nutritional science. Again, cutting edge. It's things that are channeling through me. It's not getting stuck in the old dogma and the old ways, but really using Ayurveda as a living science that's always ebbing and changing with the times and seeing how it fits with our lives today. To me, that means making it more plant-based. That means we don't need the milk. We don't need the cheese. We can eat raw foods. This is what's coming through to me. And I think for a lot of awakened people, we're leaning that direction because the vibration of foods really affects your state of consciousness. And if you're constantly eating dead foods, if you're eating a lot of cheese and milk, your vibration's going to decrease. That pineal gland's not going to be open. So to get the first half of the book free, again, it's unreleased. It's different from The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda. It's different from my upcoming book, Eat, Feel Fresh. It's an unreleased book. I don't know if it will ever be released. And all you have to do is email me the screenshot of your review to Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com, and I will email you back. When you leave a review on the iTunes store, it will just say, thank you, your review is waiting to be posted. So you can just screenshot me that. I don't need to read the review, just that you wrote one. That's all that matters. So just screenshot me that you sent in that review, email it to me again, Sahara at eatfeelfresh.com, and I will send you back the unreleased first half of my book. And please spread the word. We need more awakened people. We need more people waking up to the fact that you are so much more than this human body. And the best way to do it is to just share messages in this information age. It's as easy as sending a link to open up people's minds in a way that could have never happened even a decade ago. It's amazing. It's an amazing time. I'm so excited to be alive in this time because so much is happening so fast, and we just need to keep up with it, take care of our vessels, and keep the movement, keep the flow, stay energized. Guys, this is amazing. We are living in the best times ever. We are so lucky to be incarnated in this time where it is so easy to spread information. It's truly, I believe, the era of enlightenment. When before could someone sit in a room and talk about the freaking cosmos and all of you guys listen? And now I want you guys to share it. I want you guys to post about it. Please post on your Instagram, post on your Facebook, talk about it with your friends. It's not going to work if it's just me. It's not going to work. You start a podcast. You start the blog. You get your voice out there because you're woke and we need your voice, and you're going to be able to connect with people that I can't and that she can't and that he can't. You can only connect with those people who understand your background and can relate to you. You have such an important message here, and it's really coming through to me to tell you guys how important you are. So drop any fear, any old paradigm, any I'm not ready, any I'm not good enough. Drop that all and start sharing, and send me the link and I will reshare it. I'm so excited for you. I love you. Namaste.